Welcome to Life in Design, a bilingual podcast hosted and produced by me, Ken Penhafio. As an interior designer, I encourage the well-being of the body, mind, soul, and spirit. My goal is to create a safe space for breaking through self-imposed limitations and adopting an autonomous mindset. Each episode features inspiring individuals who have achieved their goals, encouraging you to step out of your comfort zone and design the life you always have dreamed of. Join me as we explore episodes in both English and Portuguese. I want to take this time to thank you all the sponsors and thank you to Ahi Board for sponsoring this podcast. Ahi Waves Lad believes no matter if you are a surfboarder or a bodyboarder, anyone can shred the wave. Intended for all levels of riders, Ahi Waves Lad is the ultimate barrel machine. It's made in the USA with 100% recyclable materials, easy to catch waves, and impact resistant. It's always overhead on an Ahi. Visit ahiboard.com for more details. Our very special guest today is someone who sparks my curiosity about the LGBT plus universe. Duggan is a transgender student at UCSB majoring in geography. Since the summer of 2024, she has passionately embraced her role at the campus radio station, eagerly recruiting new students and community members to join in the airwaves. Beyond homework and studies, she finds joy in learning new instruments and forging connections with fellow artists, inspiring those around her to explore their creativity and express themselves. Today, she will educate us regarding her universe while embracing her new self as a transgender person. Please explore your curiosity without judgment and engage a meaningful conversation about these effects on acceptance, representation, and identity. Don, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you
It's
for having
such
me
a
on.
pleasure to have you here to have such an important and meaningful conversation. And I would like to start our conversation today with you sharing a little bit about your background, about your school achievements, and where are you from?
Yeah, of course. Again, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's great to be here. It's great, wonderful to talk to you. And yeah, we can get into just a little bit of my background. I grew up in a town called Vacaville, which is a little bit north of San Francisco, a little bit south of Sacramento, and it was nice. I lived like in the country, so not super in like the rural part of the town. It's a little bit more red leaning, which recently has been somewhat of a worry for me. But I came here to UCSB because I wanted to I wanted to be in a place where I didn't have to worry about the connections that I already had and how they would think about me if I made like dramatic changes in my life. And so a place that was like 6 hours, away from home and it was also
You
very
could create
good.
your new persona.
Yeah, with a lot less stress behind that. And it's been really wonderful down here. I go to UC Santa Barbara. I have just some wonderful, wonderful career friends down there. One of them made me this recently.
It's
actually.
beautiful.
Thank
I
you.
love it. Wait, can you ask if she can make one for me?
Yeah, I can try. Yeah,
Yeah, no, I can pay for it.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
yeah,
I love
really
it.
like it too. Thank you. But yeah, so I came down here. I was a communications major for a little bit, and then I switched over to geography. And I think geography is super cool. It's just basically like looking at a bunch of maps and using data to communicate problems visually. Because, actually, this is a good example. You have a bilingual podcast. Maps are kind of also multilingual in the sense that a good map, you don't need to speak a language to understand it. And I early on in one of my classes, I actually made a map of I'm actually forgetting. I made a map of something regarding it was, I believe, states that were voting red in the election, and also places that were higher in like transgender crimes or crimes against transgender people.
Wow, how high it is.
I wasn't able to, I didn't have much of like the actual data at that point. That was kind of just like my introduction into the major, but it a lot of stuff was linking up.
But geography, wait, walk me through it.
Mhm.
You're doing geography right now, you major in geography, and you're mapping the transgender rate for crimes.
Yeah, like crimes against transgender people compared to the like political affiliation of the state that they live in. And more recently, I've been doing stuff like I'm possibly interested about mapping like where bird flu is going and
I
like where
see.
cases. So it's like you can really accomplish like a ton with just map making. It's not just
It's not,
LGBT.
look, okay, so when I think about geography, I think you were study like, the soil or nature, like the discrepancy of earth. But in fact, you were study like society as a whole.
Well, yeah, geography is really wide ranging because I have actually my most recent quarter was studying soil science, and that was very interesting. But I'm also very interested in like transportation as well, and it's really just like anything that you can think of that can be spatially aligned somewhere, you can make like a probably really good map around it. So in my opinion, the reason I switched from communications to geography is because I think it's really easy to communicate more complex ideas to people. Again, visually, it breaks that like language barrier. So
Interesting. Wow, I would never know that. So when did you start going to UCSB?
This is my senior year, and I transferred here at the start of my junior year. So I believe, yeah, we were saying it was start of like August 2024. Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically so how long have you been doing the transitioning path to be to be identified as a transgender?
Yeah. So before like a few weeks or maybe a month or so before I moved down here, I went to go thrifting with my friend to just like find some new clothes and stuff. I had a pattern of accidentally buying like clothes cut for women, but not like specifically so like feminine. And so I remember going to this Goodwill with my friend, and I found a dress and a top, and I was just like, it's like $3. I might as well buy it and just, go home and see. And so yeah, I went home and tried it on. It didn't fit like perfectly, but I did enjoy wearing it a little bit. And again, that was right before I moved down here. And so kind of since I've been going here, I've been slowly working my way through trying to figure this out.
Amazing. Yeah. So what's your first memory as a child?
So maybe not my first memory, but I remember the thing I remember most from like my younger schooling years or like kindergarten or anything like that was that most of my like close circle was just women. Like the people that I remember going over to their house for play dates in kindergarten were women that I like would meet later in life again, and in like high school or something. And at that point, I wasn't. You learn a lot of ways to like push your true self down when you're growing up in like middle school and stuff like that. And so I didn't feel it was as easy to connect with these people in like high school that I was when I was in kindergarten with them. But yeah, I just remember naturally, like when I was coming into the world without any biases that were put upon me yet, I naturally gravitated towards just making friends with women. And so I don't think that inherently made me like transgender or, but it's something I think about.
Right. So it's in one of your first memories being surrounded women, and then you like that universe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that connection that I felt, I don't know. There was just something that I felt like I couldn't like communicate completely to guys. I honestly am not completely sure why younger me had mainly friends. I'm just kind of theorizing on how I feel now, but yeah.
I wonder like so growing up as a boy, do you like, I'm sure that you must have like toys that is mainly for boys, which it's so funny that they divided that,
right.
Which has because when we're little, we have no consciousness of whatsoever. So it's interesting how society just portrays us. But so you probably had toys that was mainly for boys. How did you feel playing with those toys back then? Did it cross your mind? I'm like, I'd rather play with dolls or dress dolls than play with cars. Have you ever thought about that?
Well, I think that's a really good example of like the fake importance that our society puts on gender. Because yeah, why do boys only get to play with cars? Why do girls only get to play with dolls? it is just a fake concept that is pushed on you again at a young age, and that slowly, as you progress through your life, shapes who you are and how you view the world. I remember not being like bothered by having boy toys or anything like that, but I do remember when I was going over to my friend's house, I would play with like dolls, and like I would run around their house with like a fairy doll, and so that was just something that was inherent to me. Another example of these fake like concepts is like, why is blue a boy color? Why is pink a girl color?
I never could figure this out to those days.
Yeah.
I still don't think that color, especially when it comes to color, there's no such a thing for color that represents women, color that represents men. So it's a society concept to just like keep us behave in a certain way. So put those stigmas that was put on you, that you were a boy, you have to play with other boys, but you prefer to play with girls because you naturally can relate much more with girls than boys. So have I ever crossed throughout that period of you finding yourself, because I believe also kids, I mean, not just kids, us when we are young, we have no judgment, we have no consciousness, we have no idea of who we are, right? So the only thing that we have is a lot of creativity, right? We have a lot of things that we want to explore. And I wonder if back then when you were a child, if there was things that you like to explore that you were told that you cannot because you were a boy.
Yeah, I think on that example of fairies, like you were saying, at that younger age, you really don't have any judgment. And so taking that into account, I, as a young boy with no judgment, wanted to do things that were typically prescribed for women. I recently came out to my brother, and he was very accepting, which was nice. And when I told him, he was like, yeah, I kind of always figured there was something different about you. You never really liked football, which, I mean, that's just somewhat another example of these weird gender differences that are kind of fake.
Because also, football, American football, I don't know any woman that plays American football, but I know a lot of women that play soccer. Like one of my good friends, she used to play for the national team in Brazil. And she's amazing, And in Brazil, we're very like much embraced that women can play soccer too. It's not just men's. But so going back, what was your childhood like?
Yeah, well, like I was saying, I grew up in somewhat the country area, so it was a little bit hard to make friends on like my street. There wasn't really a lot of people my age, and so if I wanted to make friends, mingle, my parents would have to drive me somewhere, which is not something I really think we'll go into super in depth, but I mentioned I'm interested in transportation, and I think a lot of issues I have with this country is the fact that it's set up in a way to almost divide us. Like you have to drive somewhere, and there's not really any places to meet people. That's just not really like a concept that exists here anymore. And so when I was younger, I really, had struggles with that because I would make friends at school. I was friendly, but when I go home, it's like I have nothing to do really. And I'm out in the country and I can't walk anywhere. And that was a bit hard. I felt, I remember, well, I don't really remember as much, but I remember my parents telling me how they felt watching me kind of just have forced into being lonely. But then I did have friends that I was able to hang out with.
That's cool. So how was it for you when you heard the term transgender for the first time? That made it spark something in you?
Well, the first time I had been introduced to that concept, I was in middle school, and I thought it was pretty ridiculous. I did not actually it never made me go like, whoa. Not at the time, at least. I remember when I heard it, I was in middle school. I think this was maybe like 2016 type era. And at the time, I mean, the internet still is very hateful in a lot of ways, but at that time specifically, I remember a joke circulating about transgender people saying like, oh, well, I can just identify as anything then. And so people would be like, I identify as like an attack helicopter. That was a specific joke that got rehashed in that middle school circle that I remember perpetuating. And I don't know, it's just kind of silly. It's like, why did I have so much hate towards this group of people that I, at the time, had never even met before?
But have you ever felt hate towards them, even before you identify as one?
I wouldn't say hate. I'm not a very hateful person towards that, but I think what it was confusion and potential fear about that, because I mean, we'll probably get into this topic a little bit later, but there's a lot of fear mongering done around and towards transgender people. And especially when you're surrounded by like middle schoolers, it's like they're not going to be like, we should be nicer to people.
Yeah,
You know?
I know. Like at this point of middle school, I think we are going through something really hard on ourselves, which is like body hormones. So it just make us feel horrible. You know, we're just terrible. But unfortunately, we're not with. Maybe in the future things will change, but I feel like unfortunately we are not educated enough to understand that's gonna pass. You know, it's just like some parents, they don't have as much knowledge or patience to just like go through it. You know, because everybody goes through it no matter what. You know, it's part of a human revolution. We go through it. You know, our body's going through this, but yeah. So going back to that, so you sparkled that curiosity at some point. Do you know when the kid
The
click? Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember when I was in elementary school, actually, I had like a few thoughts of like, oh, I wish I was a girl for like a couple days. Or like if I remember specifically having a thought that was like, if reincarnation is real and I come back, I would want to try it out as a girl. And like I was fine in my place as a man, but that was like a thought that I had. I remember though, the point where like the mental walls started cracking a little bit. I remember specifically having a dream where somebody like referred to me as a girl, and I woke up and I was just like really happy, and I was like, that's weird. And for the first time to ever feel something like this, I was like, there's almost a sense of like shame built into that, which is also something we'll touch on a little bit later. But yeah, so I noticed that, and after I had that happen, I was like, maybe I should start like journaling or something. So I started doing that for a little bit, and then I had dreams like that a couple more times, and I don't really know I don't know the science of dreams or why I was getting those recurringly. Since like more recently now, that hasn't been happening, but that's kind of how I started to be like, oh, why am I subconsciously happy that somebody would want to refer to me that way?
Yeah, that's pretty fascinating because like your mind wants something else, and then your subconsciousness just like telling you that you can embrace, you know, this new person that you can create. As anybody that is working on themselves, you know, anybody that is growing and going through like they're doing the, you know, evolution as a person and the self growth. And I understand that this might be happening in your brain to like, hey, I'm growing, I'm going through some changes, and this is the person that I'm supposed to be. Did you feel like this?
Kind of. It's been very, very gradual. So again, I was having like these dreams, and then I think at the time I had been thrifting some clothes that technically were made for women. I remember I would come home from like a thrift store, and I would show my mom, like, oh, look at these new clothes I had bought. And then she was like, well, why are the buttons on the wrong side? Why is there no pockets? Why do your shoulders look like that? And I was like, that's very interesting. I never thought of anything thing like that. And like you're saying with how you can kind of mold your image over time, that's kind of, I think, what was happening to me unrecognizably. Like I was slowly entering into a more feminine part of expression, being my clothes. And then that kind of made everything else seem a little bit less scary because I had already technically started moving through this.
Right. You honestly, like the way you treat it is so natural, you know, felt that was like almost like if you were slowly transitioning, but with yourself, you know, like that was from inside out. That's the impression that I've been getting from you, you know, that was something that was embraced by you, but because it sparked your curiosity through your dreams. You know, your curiosity is just like, hey, you can be a girl for a day, you know, let's try. Let's play this up and see how it feels, you know. So that's pretty powerful if you think about it. Like how your consciousness just keeping telling you what you can be, you know, like basically like your subconscious is just like, you came in this body, but doesn't belong to you. There's something bad out there for you.
Yeah, I've been, luckily since I've been out at school, I've been able to meet with a therapist pretty regularly, and he has just been wonderful. I've met him through like the school, and I basically like first meeting, I was like, hey, I think I probably mentioned like, hey, I've been having these weird dreams and like, where do we, like, what do we do with that? My therapist has been trying to make me stop judging like my emotions. Like, for example, wanting to wear something feminine. Like that's just a want that my like brain chemicals for some reason produce something happy for that. And so why not follow that? You know, why should I have to feel all this shame behind an idea when my body is just telling me that this is something that I want? You know, why fight that?
Yeah, and also it's an idea of like society divided like men and women. Like if you feel comfortable wearing women's clothes, like who cares? Like at least that's how I feel. Like nobody, I believe that nobody cares. You
Yeah,
know,
nobody
like,
should care.
nobody should care because. There you go.
Well,
You go.
even that is like women and male clothes has changed over time. Like heels were initially created, I believe, in Serbia in I don't know the specific year, but a long, long time ago, and it was specifically created for men.
For men, yes, I know that.
Yeah, but if I was to wear heels now, it's like, oh, you're like a girl.
After you understanding your persona, how was your view at the world at the time that you just feel like, okay, now I see myself as this person, and the world is basically it's me against the world. So how did you feel about it?
When I was first coming into, you know, this identity, at first I was like, well, it's probably not that I'm transgender. It's probably just some other thing. So in the initial first month, it was just like, wasn't really a thought to me. But as this has been progressing and growing on, it's really like opened my eyes to the world in a way that I'm really appreciative towards, because as I grew up, I was a boy. I'm also white. So a lot of society is built to support people built in that look like me. And you can like, when you're in that position, you can like recognize that that's a real thing that happens. But I think until I've really like started to understand where now the world is not built for people like me. And I'm in a way having to sacrifice that privilege in search of like following my identity. But I think it's worth it, and I'm also grateful to have had that initial experience, because now I know what other people feel like. You know, they really just don't think it's that serious, and because they don't know. The system is specifically built so that the people in power just don't like think about it like that. And I think it's also been wonderful for me to experience that, because now that I'm outside of that position, I want so deeply for everybody to have lived a life that has been supported that way, you know, because that's what you think as a white man. Like that's what you assume, like, oh, everybody must just be having it this easy, and it's just really not like that. So eye-opening. Yeah.
Yes. And also like nowadays, thank goodness there's more information about it. There is more talks about it. I wonder like someone that was identified as a transgender back in the 60s and the 70s, when they did not have the access to the information about even themselves, you know, as we have now. So somehow the time is in your favor. So it's a privilege to be alive in this time right now, even though it's scary because of politics and everything. And people want to, I don't know, it's just like that is we can go there in a little bit, but there's just a lot of politics that won't just shut people down for who they are. And this is totally wrong. Because as a society, we have to unite. We cannot divide it.
And it's you have to wonder who is trying to, you know, divide us. And you mentioned politics, and also just being in a time where I have access to this information. And that is true, but it's also in a sense false, because ideas of transgender people have actually existed for many years, but that gets stifled because people don't want you to know that. For example, actually in Germany, right before Hitler came to power, there was actually a huge transgender population in Germany. And you could even, I believe, get healthcare for free. There was a lot of books and like information. Like at that time, pre-World War II Germany, you know, kind of like right now, like I have the access to express myself. And then like 3 months into Hitler's rise to power, the Nazis burned that place to the ground and started to physically, you know, burn those books, those ideas. So we've had these ideas in society for a long time, but it's these oppressive powers that don't want you to think about that because it questions the reality that they are trying to create for us. Another example of that is actually the idea of two-spirit people, which is not something I am completely educated on, so I'm not going to delve in completely, but in Native American societies before British colonization, colonizers came over, the idea of two-spirit people existed, and that is just kind of how we would express transgenderism today, I feel like. There's similarities. I'm sure there's also differences, but that existed, again, when the Native Americans were, had not been attacked by the British yet. And then, again, it's another instance of why did those oppressors want this knowledge to be invisible? Like, why do people nowadays in 2024 think that this is a new concept? And it's because these higher political powers are clearly benefiting something from isolating people into two boxes of men and women, in a sense, to divide us.
I also think that is a key factor that plays along, which is religion. Mm-hmm. That is just a way of keeping society behave in a certain way, because otherwise, if you don't, you're going to be punished by the Bible or by whatever it is, that I think that is a big key factor in there that people... It's almost like brainwashed by it, mm-hmm. because they are not able to think for themselves. So they just have this idea of what has been created, and they just believe it, and they just believe that men should belong to women, women mm-hmm. should belong to men, which is kind of, it's kind of sad, because we come here, we're here for such a short period of time to not be happy with who we are and who we want to be and who we want to become, that it's sad to think that religion would imply so much upon us.
Mm-hmm. And then again, with religion, it's also like who's delivering that information, because there is the Bible, but there's also like priests that interpret the Bible and share it in that view. And I have not read the Bible, but, when gay marriage was trying to be legalized, there was a lot of things like, it's unholy, stuff of that nature. And we're seeing basically the same playbook being used against transgender people, people picking scripts from the Bible and using it for their favor. And it's really tragic, because religion, of course, can be such a beautiful thing. And to see it weaponized, to inflict the status quo on us it's very nasty.
It is. And also it's nasty the fact that they think that same-sex marriage is unholy or whatever, but they are abusing children. Mm-hmm. Is this holy? It's not. You're taking away a beautiful time of children's all over, as happened in the Catholic Church. And it's terrible. It's a tragedy. And how many hundreds and hundreds of people and children were affected on it based on who did it? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it's just like, let's be real. What is actually a sin? It's you trying to be yourself, or you being molested by a priest.
Mm-hmm. You know? And it's also like, why are we being attempted to be divided? Who is trying to do that? And in my opinion, usually it serves as a distraction. As you've mentioned, there is a real problem in some religious, sanctuaries. Not all, of course, but like that is an issue. Like, but those people want to deflect that again towards people like me, and they want you to think that I am the enemy, so that you won't think about all the things that this person is doing.
It's called projection. So basically they want to project on the minorities, and to take away their responsibility of what they have done. And what they still continue to do, because I'm sure that there is a lot of people that believe in all those kind of things, that men should belong to women and this and that, and all those, oh my God, all those bullshit. And they are just abusing children out there. The same person that goes to the church and pray for Jesus, which Jesus is a very cool guy, by the way. I'm sure that he did not want this to happen, or people to just use his name,
use his image for
and
hate.
for hate in that sense, So that is a lot of that we can go, like, this conversation can go for
Yeah.
hours in this subject, because it gives me so much anxiety just to think about it, that you can use a religion, which is something that is supposed to unite, is something that is supposed to make us faithful, believe in a higher power, surrender, to a higher power, be compassionate, make us better humans. And then we just using this against each other. So makes me feel like the nature of human beings are just so sad sometimes, that sometimes I want to live with animals in the mountains.
Sometimes it does kind of help me to contextually think that we are just animals and we aren't so different from just like the dogs and cats that are running around. And so we do have like biological like synapses telling you to do something. And so in that case, it's like when people are afraid of people like me, it's kind of just a survival response that was put on them because, again, they're meant to fear this higher power that's going to send them to eternal damnation. And because of thoughts like that are imprinted, it makes it very difficult for people like myself. Like, let's say I did go to church when I was younger, growing up. But if I stayed there, it probably would have taken me a lot longer to realize this about myself, because I've kind of escaped a lot of implicit biases put on me. But you actually mentioned something of projection, and I think that is also very important when we're looking at how people describe transgender people. We hear, members of Congress stating that transgender people are en masse pedophiles. And it's like, well, that's a crazy accusation to just blatantly make. Like, why would you say something like that? And then now, with Donald Trump coming back into office, seeing the people that he's picking to, be his team, he picked Matt Gaetz to be, lead the Department of Justice in our country. And as maybe the people listening out there have known, Matt Gaetz recently was just convicted for having sex with a minor. And so it's like, they don't actually care. They don't actually think we're pedophiles. They are projecting on themselves in order to divide us so that we do not realize who the real enemy is, which is these people trying, again, to inflict this status quo of like men and women, like, you must marry. It's just...
And also a projection is to take attention from them and put on some of the problems. Same thing that they do most of the time in politics. They just like, that is a real problem happening right now, but they created something else that has nothing to do with nothing, but they made that big deal about it just to take the focus out of the actual problem. So they've been using that many, many years, It's just like some game that they just find. And the media also, that is in favor. That's why fake news is really big right now, because there is a lot of corrupt media out there that just keep spreading fake news, like dogs eating cats or whatever, that is just like absurd. And people believe it. But why they believe it? Because they don't have the ability to think for themselves. They don't have the power to just question things in a way that we have it, because first of all, we are educated people, so we have the knowledge to like question things, to be skeptical. And third, because we're not brainwashed by a society, by a religion, or by a point of view that doesn't belong to us, but was, inbred on us because the environment that we're surrounded. It's pretty sad to think about if you put in perspective how many people out there that they can't think for themselves. It's pretty embarrassing.
On the topic of like social media sites and everything like that, obviously with Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter, it's been going into a very dark place on that app. And recently, Meta, previously Facebook, owned by Mark Zuckerberg, I personally don't care. Let me just give some background. So they just in an update are trying to platform free speech. So they're taking out fact checking. And also in the same update, do you know how like in a chat message on like Instagram or something, there's like chat themes, like the wallpaper color can be a certain...
No.
Well, that's been a feature for a while.
Okay.
And there have been like transgender flags and non-binary flags that you could use like as a background or a theme.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and the conversation, the messages inside.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
got it.
But with this recent update, they took those out, and I mean, I wasn't using those anyway. But in one update to removed fact checking, and it's like enabling free speech is basically just not cracking down on these people that are being like racist, transphobic, homophobic, anything like that. And then they take out these flags as well. And I don't care that they took the flags out, but it's like you made a conscious effort to do that. Why did you do that? That's what's strange about it.
Yeah, no, and that's gonna only spread even more fake news, because the fact that again, once you are educated, you have the ability to question it. But once you just like don't have the ability to question anything and don't believe anything that is told, you gonna believe even more in fake news, in fake material that is just there to either brainwash you or corrupt you along a group of people trying to do bad things, Like there is a lot of conspiracy theory out there and a lot of about a lot of things. So it's kind of fun sometimes to just like, let me watch this. Okay, let me see this point of view here. Like I enjoy doing that, but I have always the ability to question and think for myself, because I'm a skeptical person. So it's just like, I'm not going to let to you to tell me anything. And I'm like, okay, I believe in you because you told me. Like, no, let me actually check fact this to make sure that what you say is the same as this article that has been published, so these, studies that has been done. So let me just like make sure that I have the source right here. And so going back to we're going to go back to politics because I think it's a very important subject, especially to educated people about the transgender, not just transgender, but like whoever you want to be, just be you, So whatever that means, just be you. So we're going to go back to that as a society and politics.
Well, actually, if I could just jump in real quick on something you were mentioning before, how like, we are educated. Did you go to university? Yeah. So we've been able to pursue a higher education, but that is not what at least the United States of America, in my opinion, actually wants. Because when Reagan came into office, that's when universities started, churning out all this cash. When before that, it used to be much more accessible. But now it's like when I think of my state in my place in college, it's like, well, I got here because the system benefited me my whole life enough to be able to get myself here. But in another subject, my mom and my aunt are actually elementary school teachers, and not just elementary school teachers, but like high school teachers, middle school teachers have been noticing a very scary pattern in our youth being just unable to read, or maybe an undesired, that's just not a thing anymore. That was a bit dramatic, but it's noticeably worsening throughout the years. And it's like if our school children who are, again, getting these implicit biases on that will change how they think about the world forever, who are not being taught how to discern all of this complicated information, and higher education, which somewhat helped us, think about stuff like this, is put behind a lot of bars. And so when you think about all those contexts, it's like this country really does not want us to be educated. And especially now, Elon Musk is getting in a government position. He's getting a lot of money from what's going on, and he's spreading a lot of fake news. We're seeing other companies do this as well. Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, Meta. And similarly, with the rise in like AI videos, it's like it's becoming harder to realize when something is fake, and they're making it harder for people to have the ability to even do that. And I think that is a very bad sign for what is to come, sadly. But I'm still holding out hope.
Yeah, me too. I'm still holding my hopes up for the future, for the next generation, to just to have the ability to, have a critical thinking. But I think that's the key. They are taking away the fact that we can have a critical thinking about every single thing, and the fact that there is so much hate out there, and the people love to hate, and they love to believe in something because someone said, but they don't actually spend 5 minutes to make sure that what they're saying is actually fact, it's actually correct. And it's sometimes it's true, sometimes that is true in it, and then, but doesn't mean that it's completely true. Sometimes the information is accurate, but to a degree that it's incomplete.
On the topic of that, with my geography degree, there is a lot of ways that you can lie with data to really get, for the most part, any result that you want to, of course, because the person that you're projecting it to, they haven't done all the research. And so they're just going to likely blindly believe whatever you say. And so if you make something that's convincing enough, especially nowadays with, scrolling so quickly on so many sites is like a plague for so many, myself included. It's like, why would I spend the time to fact check that post I saw 3 minutes ago when there's something else I could be seeing, So it's not a good pattern that we're in right now as a society.
No, I know. It's scary too. If you think about it, it is scary. Not just like what's been happening in politics, but what has been happening in the world right now too. Because I feel like we have been so bad as a human with nature and Mother Nature that we already jumped the cliff when it comes to climate changing, when it comes to global warming, we already jumped the cliff. There is no way we can be saved by that fall. However, we still can do something, and it's like, I still think people like, oh, doesn't matter if we recycle. I still think it's, if everybody does one small action, we still will be able to save it. But what we're going to be facing is a lot of natural disasters.
Which we're starting,
it's being started already,
Yeah.
Like right now we have the fires happening at the moment as we speak in Los Angeles, which has been destroyed, complete Palisades, like Malibu, some part of Malibu, the highway wall, that beautiful coast, all those homes gone. And I wonder also, like, in that subjection as a designer, I wonder if the county and the Malibu county is going to let those people to build those houses back again, because it was already like really close to the ocean. So I don't know how they're gonna do that, because also the ocean is invaded even more and more. So there's a lot of things out there that makes me think, like, yeah, as we have full accountability of what's happening right now, and we have to take action more than ever, because the planet is already to 1.5 degree, if I'm not wrong, 1.6 degree warmer than was, and the 2024 was the warmest year on Earth. So it's pretty scary when you think about it. And people are caring if you're transgender or not. I'm kidding, like, come on.
Wrapping all these ideas kind of together with the fire in LA right now, a lot of news coverage is focusing on like, oh, there's a lot of people coming in and looting these houses, which, there might be people that are doing that. But I think that the fact that the news is so focused on this idea of looting rather than, these people that their lives are being uprooted and they're, why is the focus not on that? And it's, again, I don't know. There could be a real problem with that, but I just don't trust our news. I don't trust our government, really. And so that, to me, that feels like another distraction.
It always can be a distraction, because also, like, it's going to take a long time for people to realize what problems we actually should be addressing. There's a lot of things there that it's wrong. It's wrong. The way that the Los Angeles cut not the benefits, but cut the budget for firefighters, for water, for reservoir, and they gave to the police, and also people that own water reservoir and water fountains is just like, it's crazy. How could you monopoly such a thing, you know? And it has been a problem all over the world if you think about when it comes to water. That is a lot of places that has no water because water is such a private source for whoever has money. So we are facing like real problems. And the thing about what sparked the curiosity to me about LBTG
LGBT
plus communities is because it is an important subject. Yes, it needs to be respected, it needs to be accepted. And it's not me that I needed to accept it, you know, because it doesn't change anything in my life.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't make any difference in my day. So why I would be bothered by you that wants to be you? That is actually a real problem in the world that needs to be addressed than being worried about whoever you dress up or whoever you sleep with or what you want to dress up, if you want to dress up a woman's clothes or not. Like, that's not a fucking problem.
It's fake. It's just a completely fabricated issue. And again, like you're saying, we are facing the climate crisis that is not slowing down. Both of our candidates in this race for president in the United States just gave us no hope for anything different. Even the Democratic option, Kamala Harris, was pro-fracking in this election. And it's like, so we're getting to a point where we're not going to be able to turn everything back from what's been happening. And
again, we already jumped the cliff.
We've already jumped the cliff. And so we are 100% going to face many negatives from this. But there's still work to be done to, prevent complete, annihilation or something on that level. But our leaders aren't giving us that option. And instead, again, they're having these fake culture wars that they're not even real. They're like, look at that person that has a penis who wants to wear heels. That's what we should direct our anger to. And so actually, funnily enough, I think that realizing a lot of this stuff has made me just be like, wow, I could have my whole life uprooted just like that. Like, I don't know, any climate disaster, really. LA is only less than a couple hours away from here. That could be here.
Yeah, we had the
anytime
Thomas
soon.
Fire that started down there 5 years ago,
And so it's like, this stuff could happen at any moment. And for me, it's like, so I could die at any moment, right? Why, if I was going to die right now, like, why would I not be living
the life of
my dream?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing that sometimes it gives me so much. I don't know. It just like goes. It hurts. It hurts me because that is actually real problems out there. Let's talk about education. That is not free. You start your life as a fresh young person getting out of high school with a huge debt just to go to school, just to pursue higher education, just to think for yourself, just to have critical thinking, just to question it. Why they don't make education free as a lot of countries, even Brazil, that they portray Brazil as a third world country. But sometimes, honestly, we're much more advanced in a lot of things than just be portrayed as a third world country, because we're high educated, we speak many languages, we pursue like self-thinking for ourselves, we go above and beyond our human nature to understand who we are. The amount of people in that country that has self-knowledge about themselves and self-growth, it's amazing to see. It's beautiful. And he is just that thing that I lost my thought. And here is just like the idea of everything that you're gonna do is gonna cost you something. It's gonna, like, why people only have 10 days off per year? Because they don't want you to go outside. They don't want you to go outside of the country to see what is out there. Because out there, I have friends all over Europe, and one of them has 45 days per year for vacation time. 45.
So over a month.
Over a month.
Over a month of it.
I had 30 days when I was in Brazil.
Wow.
30 days. And I used to take every 4 months, 10 days. So it's a nice break. You recover faster. You don't get as much burnout as I used to get here. However, There's a lot of problems out there too, and there's a lot of problems all over the world. But here, what I feel is just like America has a sense of like your money is worth something, but you have to spend it in-house, which means that you're going to spend inside the country.
Mm-hmm.
You have opportunities to go out there, but you need to be above.
It's going to be slightly more difficult than if you were just to do what we want you to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or you have to be slightly above, like in a level of society to just like have the ability to go to college, to think for yourself, to travel, to maybe do a broader study. So that is something out there that is actually fascinating. America is great, it's amazing, but there is a lot of things and there's a lot of things that is wrong.
Yeah.
As Beyonce says, America has a problem.
And you mentioned how people, call Brazil a third world country. And I think that's just a ridiculous sentence for anywhere in the world. Because again, like why do we have the authority to label another society as lesser? That's just racist.
It is.
And also on this topic of like higher education and wanting to see what else is out there in the world. Again, they intentionally make that as hard as possible for you. I, again, have not faced a lot of these struggles because society has, again, been built for people that are white, people that are men. And it's like, so it wasn't a difficulty for me to get into college. But what if I had like some medical debt too, Medical debt shouldn't even exist, really. This is a third world country problem.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
That's the whole point because like I'm half American, half Brazilian. And I feel sometimes that America's a third world country too.
They just have an ego here.
Yeah, like the power, that the feeling of like your money's worth it, but there is a lot of problems out there that belongs to a third world country. So let's be real. That is a lot of problems that we need to address that is more important here. Like a couple of years ago, in the middle of the U.S., they opened the faucets and the water was coming like yellow, dusty, dirty. And that was the water available for cooking.
Yeah.
And it's just like, this is something that you see in Africa. This is something that you might see like in Brazil. You might see like in a very poor countries. But you don't expect to see this in America. Like, come on, let's be real of what actually happens here. And another thing, like, when it comes to medical issues and when it comes to health insurance, it's insane. To me, it's insane because, so give an example. My mom, unfortunately, she had cancer. And it was really quick. And we figured out, my mom, she's very wise. She figured out right in the beginning. Sadly enough, it wasn't her mouth. So they have to remove everything. But it's a work in progress, like she's still doing. She did not have to go to chemo or anything, but it's been a road. However, we were prepared, right, to spend a lot of money. And my sisters and we talked, and then we're like, okay, so let's be ready to just like jump in and, like find the best doctors all over and blah, blah, blah. Guess what? We have something called SUS, S-U-S in Brazil. Everything was paid by the government. So far, it's been like 4 years and we haven't spent one penny on it.
And you can only get that in a third world country.
In a third world country as Brazil. As they portray Brazil as a third world country. But we're actually not. Because also, school is free in Brazil. School is free in Brazil.
Wow.
We can go to universities for free the whole time. There's no tuition. So it's paid by the government. Also, the government in Brazil used to send a lot of students internationally. So there would be this program that would be Study Without Borders, something like that. And they would go to another country, all over the world, all the universities, including UCSB, that used to accept a lot of students. And they would study here for a year and a half, and then go back to help develop Brazil. So
yeah. That's wonderful.
It is wonderful. And I'm like, and then you're telling me that I need to start my life here when I'm like 18, 20 years old with $100,000 debt because I'm trying to pursue higher education.
And again, so many of these issues link into each other, like in so many different ways that I feel like when I talk about it, it feels like I'm talking about a conspiracy-ish like theory. So let me present like my conspiracy to you. So it's like, okay, we have medical debt in this country, which is, from what I understand, the number one reason why people go into debt in America is, due to our healthcare system. So let's say you have cancer or something, anything really that puts you under. Okay, then you could possibly become homeless because you could not pay for your health, which is not even a problem in third world countries, quote unquote. Okay, so then you're homeless and you might have some, issues with your health as well. Homeless, it's basically illegal to be homeless in the United States. Recently, a lot more homeless people have been getting arrested for, tenting and stuff like that. And so it's like, okay, so you had a medical issue, you became homeless, and then you get arrested for being homeless. And then while you're in the prison system, they can make you go and fight the fires that we're dealing with because the people who are not affected by these issues want it to be that way. And I feel like that sounds like a conspiracy theory, but like, I think that's just why they're doing this. Because again, why are they calling Brazil a third world country? I think it's probably to distract us from thinking that Brazil could have any good ideas. And so it's like, they want to implant the thought of like, yeah, they might have healthcare, but it's like, you don't want that. You don't want to live in a third world country.
Yeah, honestly, like in Brazil has a lot of problems. Let's be real too. Same thing as America has a lot of problems. And then we just need to face reality.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of violence. There is a lot of, the police there, the police there, it's not something that you can trust as you trust here, I'm saying here, California somehow, like I would be scared elsewhere, but I feel like California is almost like my country. Oh my God, I might get in trouble. I used to say like California, my country, because, we are so isolated too, from the rest of the country. And we have different politics here too. We have different, states has its own politics and laws and stuff. So we have different ones. But in Brazil, we have a lot of problems, and we just need to be real about it. There's a lot of also corruption. There's a lot of people that is doing bad things in government. There is a lot of, presidents, past and present, that they're just not being good. They're not doing good things. But at the same time, what we have to, like, when I think about myself as half Brazilians, the fact that it's there's a resilience in the people that makes everything worth it by the end of the day, because we're trying to not just achieve something bigger, but also we're going after things that we believe, things that we want, and I don't see here people as much motivated to go after the dreams.
Yeah.
It's just like a point of view, I guess. I don't know. I might be wrong, but it's just like the difference. I feel like when I travel, I always see Brazilian people all over. It's just like amazing the amount of time and the amount of places that you can find Brazilians, because we're just curious people. We just go everywhere, because even though we recognize the problems we have in house, we also know that is other countries doing something better that we want to just like know, or like have a little bit of that experience elsewhere.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear. Again, like that education abroad program, and the fact that school is free and medical debt is free, there is no medical debt. That's really cool, and it seems like that it has a much bigger focus on actual improvement, but I just don't feel that here, at least right now. I like in the United States, at least right now, because again, it's like we're facing a climate crisis, and these people that get thrown into debt have to go fight these fires for like $5.
Yeah, and then they are the one that get hurt the most.
Yeah.
They are the one that they don't have the experience and training that firefighters has, so they're the ones that is getting hurt by. They are getting injuries.
Yeah.
They get injuries by it.
Yeah. And it's like we're paying people $5 an hour to go fight fires. My dad is also a firefighter, but like he wasn't forced to do so. So it's like when I think of people doing what he, has chosen to do, but they're forced into that because they're in prison for whatever reason, like you don't know. That's just slavery in a different text. And I mean, it is slavery. It says that it is in the Constitution. It's literally like slavery is not allowed unless as a form of capital punishment. And so we have all of these problems, and our government is not giving us a vision into the future where anything will be good. Like, I don't have really any hope, especially we haven't even started Trump's second presidency, right? Like,
it's already scary enough.
It's already scary enough. We have another 4 years of this. The climate crisis is not stopping. So I'm really curious to see what the rest of my life is going to be like here.
Yeah, no, and going back to the subject as a transgender, that is a lot of important. That's at least my think. That is much more important things out there to be concerned about than whoever you want to be or whoever you want to sleep with or dress up like, So when it comes to that, on my mind, I'm like, why that is so important?
Mm-hmm.
Why there is so much attention to it? I mean, I understand one thing about it. I understand when kids, they are very young, and that is that is the part of you don't know who you are, and then you label yourself as a transgender when you're like 4. But again, you have no consciousness of it, so have fun with that, but people are so against it. And I'm against the fact that there is a lot of people that, not against not the right word, but some parents, they're more wise to understand their child. If they know that child is sad for being a boy, but it's much happier when they wear girls' clothes, have fun with. Let it be. As long as, in my opinion, as long as you don't change your body when you were certain age, that you were so young that you might regret in the future, because there is a lot of people doing transitioning when they're really young. And honestly, like, I think this is scary. The fact that you mutilating yourself and changing your body and removing parts of your body just because you don't identify when you were 13 and going to a lot of hormones, that part I'm like, okay, I need to hold off on that, because that can be a lot in the future, because we regret choices that we make, And then many times I probably regret, like, I don't know, sealing off. But yeah, that haircut did not make me look good. I should not have it. But imagine change a part of your body. That part for me is like, okay, we needed to understand this a little bit more. That's when I think understand the situation, the concepts, and, why people feel the way they feel, to help those families that is going through that change, or those young teenagers that want to go through these changes so early.
Yeah, I think that, I understand why that's like a fear that people have. And I, as we mentioned, came into this identity as an adult, basically. I was over 18. And it's definitely a confusing, time out there for younger kids who do feel that way. I mentioned before, again, that I had that thought that, if I was born again, I would like to be a girl. But it's like, that doesn't mean I should just get these, surgeries. However, in my opinion, that's not even really something that's happening. For me, like, it's very difficult to actually be able to transition. A lot of people are put on wait lists for months and months, and these are adults as well. And it doesn't start off with surgery. Like, you can't just come out of the bat and be like, oh, I want to have a sex change surgery. You can't. They just won't let you do that. I've had to be going to therapy for almost, a year and a half now, where I've been discussing this with my therapist, and only now have I been like, okay, I actually do want to meet with a doctor about this. To be able to do that, though, I needed a therapist note to certify that this is actually something that I do want.
Oh, I see.
And so even as an adult, a year and a half of talking to this person to be able to get a certification to even meet with a doctor, And so for children, it's like, I don't think that, kids should have the authority to make a potential life-changing decision that they're not going to potentially agree with when they're older. But also, it's a much, much more difficult process, even for adults to actually get it. And also, they're not giving children surgeries. I would be surprised if you could get a sex change surgery before you were 18.
I think 16.
Yeah, actually, I was about to say, yeah, maybe even 16.
But even though I think 16 is really young.
I made a lot of decisions when I was 16 that I ultimately regret. So I agree in some circumstances. But again, that's not exactly what transitioning is. Transitioning is not a sex change surgery. I have considered myself transgender for a long time, and I'm not even on hormones yet. And so I've done what's known as socially transitioned. I go by a different name, I go by different pronouns, I present myself wearing different clothes. And this is something that is the first step for people, not just adults, but like kids too. It's like, okay, we're not just going to give you these life-altering drugs because you might want it. Like kids want Cheetos too. Like you can't just give them everything, but there's such a process to this. And also kids of that age would be put on puberty blockers, which is not just used for transgender students. It might not be specifically for it, but I think it was for, I'm not even going to say because I don't have a confirmation, but puberty blockers are not just used to change your gender identity. They're used to combat also medical issues.
Yeah.
And so that also just like stops your body from progressing as your gender. It doesn't, and that has to be also prescribed by a doctor. You're not going to bring your third grader in and they're just going to leave with different genitalia. That's just like not. That's just it's fake. It's a fake story that is presented similarly to saying that trans people are pedophiles. It's like, that's a completely different reality. There's a Trump clip that was circulated that was very funny where he's like, you're going to send your kids to school and they're going to come back a different gender. And it's like, that's just not how this works. But people might not know transgender people in their life. And so they just believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so transitioning is an incredibly long process. Also, like I mentioned, I'm going to be talking to my doctor about potentially getting HRT, which is the drug that would slowly be, changing my body to be more feminine. Yeah. I could be taking that drug for about 6 months, and then I could just stop, and I wouldn't even notice any changes. So I also have to willingly inject myself with something for 6 months without seeing any changes, and you can stop at any time. And so it's really not like this boogeyman story of this doctor's going to come in and cut your child's genitals off. You know what I mean? It's a much slower process, and doctors aren't even super excited to do. Well, I don't know.
And I mean, it's also a process for yourself as acceptance for yourself.
Yeah.
As a persona, like imagining, like when you look at yourself in the mirror, like you have to like what you see, right? So it's a slow process, as a progress, like I feel like I don't know, I'm not a transgender, but for me, it's like, it's a process that you are more focused on the process itself than the result, because you already know the results, what's going to look like on your mind, because that's you looking for your highest self, Please educate ourselves in that subject, because there's a lot of people that still feel confused. What's the difference between transgender identity and the sexual orientation?
I think that this can be a difficult thing to kind of conceptualize from an outside perspective. And additionally, with all of the motions saying that like transgender people are pedophiles and stuff like that, obviously you would initially think that they must be inherently linked. But I mean, myself personally, again, I've been going to therapy for a year and a half specifically to talk about this, basically. And I have not had sex in a way that is accepting or promoting my gender identity. Men and women have fake roles that are in society, but they are, they're technically real because we believe them to be. And it's the same thing for sex and relationships. Men are supposed to be more dominant, women are supposed to be more submissive. So trying to find how to link that back, but so it's like for me, I've been going again a year and a half in therapy just to try and figure out what I've been like thinking about. And sex has not once really been like an issue. I mean, obviously it's something I have to consider. If I'm going to have a completely different body and I'm going to have sex with somebody, like that's just going to be something I'm going to have to think about at some point. But it's like the concept that people might have of transgender people doing this like to have sex, which I'm assuming is a position people have. It's like, again, I have to sacrifice the privilege of being a male to do this. I have to put myself in a very dangerous position. Transgender people are, face very high levels of violence. And it's like, also it's very public. Well, at a certain point, it's very public. It's my identity that I'm showing to you. Like right now, this is like a public thing. Why would I be walking around town showing people how I want to have sex? That just doesn't make any sense to me. Sex is not that important in my life. And it's also a personal thing. I would not want just strangers to know about it. You know what I mean? But it's also like if I am transitioning to be accepted as a woman, like if I'm going to have sex, it's probably going to be like I would like to feel like a woman. You know what I mean? So it's like in a sense they're intertwined because it is my identity, and at a certain point that's not just going to become hypothetical. Like not just because of my clothes, like I will have physically different features. And it's like also opens me up to danger, takes multiple years where I would have to inject myself multiple, for months on end. Why would I do that? Just so I could have like sex. You know?
And also like even though if you become a woman, full on body, not even though, but you become a woman, like your body, it's a woman body. Sometimes you still can be attractive for another woman.
Yeah.
It's just like, or you can be attracted for a man to a man. So it's just like, it doesn't matter, like I know transgender that it's attracted for the opposite sex from the original sex, that gender that they were born. So for me, there's no correlation on it.
I think that like, it does force me to be more aware of like my sexual orientation because again, it's like I'm changing how I outwardly express myself. The way I feel inside is the same, but I'm expressing how I feel to people outside by, wearing stuff more feminine. But for people that transition, it's like, okay, now I am accepted as a different role, and also gay marriage is legalized. It can like align because you're thinking about your own identity. And your sexuality is part of your identity. It's how you view other people. It's who you're attracted to. And as I mentioned earlier, how there's, these fake but real roles for sex, for genders in sex. It kind of forces you to think differently from that. I have been viewed like needed to be like a dominant figure in that section. And then now that I'm like, oh, this is who I want to be, it's like I don't really want to be a dominant figure. So in that way, my identity has informed my sexual orientation. But again, I'm not thinking about, like, this has nothing to do with sex, really. It's just like, wow, leggings are cool. I wish I could wear that. Wow, skirts are cool. I wish I could wear that, You're
much more attracted to the universe, the feminine universe at the moment than like like your sexuality itself, your sexual orientation, like, I guess, I don't know, what I'm getting from, it's like you are more focused on like becoming, then you can figure this out, like who your sexual orientation, it's not a priority for you right now.
Yeah. And it's a long process too. And I don't know. I understand why from an outside perspective, it seems that way because again, when I was in middle school, my first time hearing about this, I was like probably having some similar thoughts like, oh, that's just some weird like kink or something, but it's just not. I mean, actually, when I come out to my friends, sometimes they're like, so is it like a sexual thing? Like, is this because you're like into men? And it's like, no, it's like something that made me, I think something that a lot of transgender people have to consider when they're thinking about if they want to transition or not is like, every single day, every single second of my life, how do I want to be perceived? When I go to buy groceries, when I go to pay, when I go to vote, when I literally go like to change my tire? How do I want to be perceived? Because if I just wanted to have sex as a woman, I wouldn't take drugs for the rest of my life, you know?
Right.
It's like I'm doing this because I want people to, without me having to have this whole conversation with them, I want them to accept me for who I am on the inside without, again, me having to be like, oh, I'm actually not with these societal roles. Because that's annoying. That's annoying. I enjoy talking about it with you, of course. But if I had to, with every person, like I know, like explain all of
You
this.
can just send this podcast to them.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's like, I'm doing that to make like you be able to see how I see myself.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is going to change how the world interprets me and I interpret the world for the rest of my life. So I think I understand why people can think it's a sexual thing, but I also think it's just really silly.
Yeah, no, I get it. And, but I think it's an important thing to, to discuss just the fact that the whole idea is to educate people, it's make people to understand that, that is part of that is actually is a very complex subject too. And I think the more knowledge we get from, the more we understand, the less important, not that it's not important, but the less it's going to be of like the elephant in the room, as a lot of people treat it, and there's a lot of families still struggling to understand that, and to understand that that child doesn't want to be in that body that they came with, And a lot of parents, I think it's beautiful when parents just understand that right away and just like embrace it, because it makes life much easier, and it makes your children or your son and daughter much happier just to be accepted home, for something that they are fighting inside too. Because trust me, I'm sure that once you figure this out, you go through a lot just to come out of your shell, just to accept and just to say like out loud, like this is who I am and that's who I want to be. So it takes a lot of balls to honestly does. It does. It takes a lot of from you to just like say, yes, that's who I am and that's who I look in the mirror and I like it, and that's who I want to be. Just to accept that, even not even just as a transgender, but as a gay, as a lesbian woman, it just takes a lot of from a person to just accept that, because that a lot of people it's gonna give the back to you. A lot of people it's not gonna be next to you anymore, because they unfortunately they don't have the kindness and knowledge to understand that doesn't make any difference on their lives. Whoever you want to be, just be acceptive, just be like judgmental free for, and be happy for this person to be happy.
That's a very big thing of it too. It's like it's obviously going to be confusing for you if somebody in your life comes out like that, and it's going to be a long process for like you to also, like, for example, you have known me by a different name than Dawn, but I mean, it doesn't, like, why would it matter to you? You
it
know?
doesn't.
So you just accept it. Yeah. Something I was watching a like cooking competition show, and this season was airing in like 2006, and this girl stood up at the table at the introduction episode and announced to everybody that she was a lesbian. And I was like, that's so weird. Like, why would you ever do that? But like in the time, like, of course that makes sense, because people were fighting for gay rights and it was much more of a topical issue, and people also just did not know we're not educated about gay people. And so I think that's kind of similarly how I feel. I don't want to have to stand up and announce my identity to people.
You don't have to.
Yeah, I don't have to. But I think having these open conversations can be great, because again, I think a lot of it, even when I first discovered it, I think a lot of the hatred is just confusion and fear, because again, our government officials label transgender people as pedophiles. Of course you wouldn't want your third grader to be associated with people like that, but that's just, again, it's a false image. And it's like, it's literally as simple as like, I just want to look beautiful. Like, I don't want to look handsome. I just want to look pretty. Like,
because the handsome for men and pretty for women.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
No, it's valid.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, I know we've been talking a lot of political stuff, and I'm sure that we could have been talking forever about this subject because it's fascinating to me. And but ultimately, the end of the day, it all matters to you, who you are. And as long as you're good, you do good, and you're good for people around you, like, it doesn't matter, like, it should not matter. And we should not be focusing on that. We should not be focusing on like how people want to live their lives when it doesn't matter, doesn't affect my life whatsoever. Doesn't make any difference on my day, and doesn't make any difference in anybody else's day, by the way. It's just like, do you, be yourself, be happy. Because I truly believe in a society that when we're all happy and confident with ourselves, when we feel loved with, when we feel self-love, we would have much less self-destruction, would have much less hate, would have much less misery. Because once we are happy, we just spread happiness. And that's what I wish for everybody. I wish people would understand that, because it doesn't make any difference in our lives. Like, let people be and live the way they want to live, because life is too short to not be what do you want to be.
Yeah.
Like, and embrace the process of becoming whoever you want to be. You are transgender. You want to turn into a beautiful woman, pretty woman. Yes, do. You are looking for pursue higher education, and you want to do a doctorate. Go after. Be the person that you want to be. Because by the end of the day, it's you alone fighting for your dreams.
That's a very important part of it. It's like, if I was alone on this earth, I would probably still transition, because if I were to look in a mirror, it's like, I want to be happy with that. I don't want to have to, I play this narrative that was placed upon me by this society that I really just do not agree with. It's like, I want this because I want this, and I don't need you to be involved at all. You just have to accept that I'm a person. Really, that's all I'm asking of people is just to really accept that I'm a person. Because luckily, I have not had to deal with a lot of the discrimination yet, because I can still pass as a man, and I don't dress like this every single day. So I lost my train.
You still not feeling the judgment and discrimination.
Yeah, but still, it seems worth it to me, because it's how I feel inside. And for a long time, again, I've been talking to my therapist about this for a year and a half, and for a long time, I did not think I actually wanted to transition. But as I've kind of like what you've been saying, life is so short, and realizing that our leaders don't care about our future, and they're trying to turn us against each other, it's like, I really can't be wasting any time, because it's a process that takes so long. And this is how I feel. I know it is, because in my least judgmental form of, being that young child, this is something that I felt was natural or interesting. And now that I'm educated enough to know more about it, it's like, why would I waste any more time?
Yeah. And also, like, it's just because we're going through something right now that is different. Is strange. The politics, that's the way things happening right now. It is strange to think about it. But I have hope that we will face politics that believe in us, that politics that embrace the diversity, embrace people for being who they are. And it's just a phase, but we'll pass. Probably it's going to be another Trump, because that's how politics is, that's always going to be a conservative side and, a liberal. So that's how works. So we just need to make sure that we're not up on that. We're not like super connected to it, that let this affect our lives, because it does affect us somehow. But by the end of the day, how much does it affect your life? How much the government affect your life? Like, I don't know, like, do you live off the government? Probably not. So it's minimal, but when it comes to that part of the segment of you, it's important to have laws that protect you as a transgender. And I think that's when the community comes and fight for it, because everybody needs to be under the same umbrella by the end of the day. have the same rights. You know,
Yeah.
as in a white person, as a black person, as a gay, as a, you know, lesbian, whatever, you know, like what I hate about society the most, and I hate to say hate, is the segregation of people. I remember looking at the elections and like, oh, this number of Latin people voted for Trump. Like, okay, they're not Latins, they are Americans. You only can vote if you are American. So stop segregating these people.
Yeah.
Stop saying like the amount of black people. No, they are Americans. We are all Americans here. And these people decided to vote for Trump because they're Americans. Stop segregating, you know? So what I don't like the most about is the segregation. But I guess segregate is important to fight for, you know, those communities. So fine. You know, go after, but please stop dividing.
It's kind of like race is also another one of those things that like exists, but it exists because we believe that it does. And now that we have put such an importance on it, it's not so easy to just be like, we're just going to forget about all that because, you know, there's been such a just history of just like racism in this country, and not just this country, of course. But yeah, it can just do so much damage. And I really wish that we didn't latch on to that as an idea, really. I also, similarly, I wish we didn't latch onto the idea that there are only men and women, because, again, it did not have to be that way. One more time, the Native Americans had this idea of two-spirit people, and they were here before us. And
and I believe that we are here to change. I believe, like, I truly believe, I'm hopeful for better society, for better days, for understanding. And I think the more educated that we get, the opportunities to educated people, to just like, it's okay, you do you. I don't have to accept, but I need to respect. And that's it, you know, even though we can disagree in a lot of things along the way, but we still can respect the way we think. And I think that's what is missing in society now. You know, like we don't have to agree on everything. It's okay to disagree. It's totally fine as long as we respect each other. As long as we respect the way we think, the way, because everything is based on your experiences. Everything is based on the way you've raised it, your background. So you are this person that has been formed, you know, by some other group of people. So we're always going to be different. And that's the beauty of life. Imagine if everybody was a stormtrooper. You don't want to be like everybody else. No, because you're so unique. You are special. You were this divine force that was here, that was made to be here in this lifetime, in this moment, to even fight for this, you know, because in history, in the future, you're going to have your percentage of amount of time that you've been fought for. Just be yourself, you know? So that's the beauty of life. And then we have to go through it. But we need to accept it. We need to respect. You know, we need to respect one another. It doesn't matter if I accept who you are or not. It doesn't make any difference in my life. Why I would not respect you or your opinion, you know? So it's easy as that in my mind, I guess.
Yeah, as a concept, it's very easy. I think like, even in my life, I have had difficulties with this. Recently, I just cut one of my friends out of my life that I'd known since elementary school because he voted for Trump. I don't think that makes him like an evil person. I think it means that he is supporting a lot of things that I don't agree with. But it's possible, you know, he might not have known. I think it's difficult because, again, I remove this person from my life because Trump has labeled me as a target. He's spent millions of dollars on ads discriminating towards transgender people. And so it's like, in my mind, if you support this guy, I don't think you're like the worst person in the world, but are you somebody that I want to hang out with? No. But then it's like, also, if I'm just cutting somebody off because they have a different opinion than me, then how are we ever going to get past that?
Exactly.
So it's really tough.
It is tough. And I honestly, like, I don't agree. I have a lot of friends that has vote for Trump. And it's okay because you vote based on your values, on your experiences, on things that you believe, on how you view the world. And maybe what's like when you cut it off, you're actually dividing. You're not enjoying you're not bringing close to have a conversation, to bring the subject to like, because how can you educate in this person that is voting for Trump that is against what you want to be or what you are, you know? So the way, since you have access to this person, it's educator, in the matters. I'm like, hey, this is what happens to me. And I don't agree with that part of the government because this and that. But the thing is, once you cut it off, you are dividing. You are creating a division. You're not bringing closer to you to make this friend to understand who you are, and then maybe have a possibility to change their mind.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. It's really tough because for me personally, it's like, well, I was very hurt by that, even though that was not this person's intention, and they definitely don't support those practices of his, And now you're right. Like, now that I don't really have communication with this person, there's no chance of me changing his mind on something that I believe to be right,
Yeah,
But-
because it's right for you and it makes sense for you, but it doesn't make any sense for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then that's when respect come. That's when we needed, like, even though I don't agree, and there's a lot of things that I don't agree, there's a lot of things that it's not going to fit on my life, but doesn't mean that I should not respect. You know what I mean? So I feel like once we make the division, that's when the conversation gets hard to have. But once you have to understand, like, this person believes on this because of this and this and that, it's easier for me to understand where people come from when I know them, when I understand the background. Like, oh yeah, that makes sense. This person is going to vote like that, or is going to think like that because of this and this and that, So it's like, it's a way of thinking that also it's a mindset to just like, I understand, I also respect you for thinking like that because I understand where you come from. I don't agree, doesn't belong to my life, this way of thinking. It's probably not what I would do for myself, but I respect that you think it this way, because once we take a lot of offenses of how people vote or how they believe the world should be, like, it just makes it harder for us to have a communication, to unite it back again,
It's more of that, like, fake culture war that, why am I getting angry at somebody that's supporting this thing? Because they kind of have to, right? We only have two parties. Similarly, we only have two genders. Like, they intentionally create systems that is either one or the other. And it puts us in these situations of like creating an enemy when really there is none. The enemy is the people that are dividing us. And I don't know. I still don't know there's a perfect midway towards this, because it's like, I want in my personal friendships to feel always supported and never have to question, who I am. And that's not going to be easy for everybody, but I do have people in my life that will do that. So it's like, should I have to spend the time to educate somebody that I matter? You know what I mean? And probably yes, but it's also like, should I have to? I don't know. So that's where I'm kind of, it's like, I don't like that we are in a place where people are so divided because of politics. And I think that it is a fake war that is benefiting the people in power. But it's also tough because I could still get my feelings hurt by it,
I know. Yeah, because you have feelings, you know? Like, it's going to get hurt.
And my feelings are real, and my emotion by being hurt by that is valid.
It's
and
valid.
Real. But should I have done that? I don't know.
I know. It's tough. It's a tough call. Well, I love this conversation. I could be talking with you for hours on that subject because it's very fascinating, and maybe we should have a part 2 of this. Because there is a lot of things to digest in there. And I think it's an important conversation to have, and like having an open conversation about those things that is tough to talk, even like, there's a lot of politics out there. There's a lot of things that we can be talking, and we can be talking shit in different ways, like going back and forth, but also like the whole thing for me is like, we have to create an awareness and positivity around those subjects. We cannot, like, the way I view the world is like, it is what it is. You're responsible. Take accountability for whoever you vote, and now go for it. Like now it's on you. Like, as long as you're not part of this, I at least that's how I can sleep at night. Like, I did not sign up for that, so I have nothing to do with that. Have fun with. You know what I mean? When you look back, like throughout your life, what's the most accomplishment that you can think of for yourself that you're proud of?
I actually, not to have like a cop-out answer, but I do think it is my pursuing of my identity. For a long stretch of my life, I've felt very cowardly, and there are still aspects of that that I want to conquer and, grow over. But this has been an opportunity for me to recognize a group of people that inherently is under more oppression than the previous social group I was in. But I recognize that this was something that made me feel true to myself. And I'm honestly very proud of myself that I have kept thinking about it for this long and kept pursuing this. Because also it's ended in, it's like I've just said, it's ended friendships, it's ended relationships for me. And that's all in pursuing of my true self. And I've had to, I didn't like cutting, my friend off or having to break up with my ex-partner, but I did so in an attempt to ensure my safety and my feeling of me, I guess, which is not something I felt like I would have been able to accomplish in many years of my life, because I'm asserting that I matter enough to go through something difficult if it means that I will, love myself more.
Right.
So I think I am very proud of this. I think I'm blown away by the courage I've seen from other people of my community, and I still have a long way to go. And I don't even really know what the end go. People don't treat me like an actual woman. Men don't violently treat me like a woman as well. So there's a lot of unknown still, and it's still a very scary process. But I'm, with the support of the people that I have in my life, I'm trying to push through that, and I'm proud of that.
Nice. So when you feel your happiest, when do you feel that you are at your happiest?
Usually when I'm presenting like this, it's not like I can't feel joy if I look like a guy, because for some people that's like hell for them. For me, luckily, I've lived long enough as a man, and it didn't really have an inherent bother for me. I like that androgynous middle ground sort of. So I don't know. I think when I do this, again, it's kind of a reminder that I am putting myself first. And then sometimes I've taken pictures of a new outfit, and the way that I'm smiling in these pictures is not a way that I've smiled in pictures before. Mm-hmm. In old relationships, people will be like, "Do you want to take a picture together?" And I'm like, "No, I don't think I look good," But now it's I would feel much more confident in that. And so I don't have to be like this every day to feel my fullest, but when I'm already feeling good and I'm like this, I feel like I can reach higher levels of happiness than I'm been able to.
Right. Beautiful. Love it. So the question for you, it's what do you appreciate in life?
Well, can I ask what you appreciate in life first? Maybe I can jump off of that.
Yeah. I appreciate in life a lot of things, actually. I appreciate the fact that I can breathe, natural.
Braid?
Yeah, breathe.
Yeah. Breathe. I thought you meant
breathe.
braid.
No, breathe.
Yes.
I got to restart. I appreciate the fact that I can breathe. Okay. I appreciate the fact that I can breathe without to do anything. I don't even need to think about it, right? So for me, especially when we have fires that you need to wear a mask. During the pandemic, I had a hard time wearing a mask because I would feel suffocated, and for me it was hard. Something that I never thought that. But after the Thomas fire that we have here in 2018, I started realizing how much I appreciate just to be able to breathe naturally. And another thing I appreciate in life, it's also nature. It's when I feel most grounded. I feel like sometimes I lay down under the tree and just let my body heal with the power of nature. And I also appreciate my family and friends. I appreciate my house. I appreciate my relationships that I built throughout my life, which I have friends for many, many years. And yeah, I appreciate a lot of things in life, like I feel what you appreciate appreciates. So basically, like when you add value to something, like that appreciates, add
That
values,
grows with time.
add
Yes.
values back, and I'm
Yes.
not talking about financial values, but I'm talking about like enriches yourself,
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. I think I have definitely some few similar answers to you there. I'm very appreciative that I've been able to, like we mentioned earlier, escape the medical debt, extravaganza that our country profits on. So I'm very lucky to be in good health, to be able to breathe. And someday, obviously you breathe so often every day, you're not going to appreciate it every single time. But there are
But
times
when you put
when
in perspective, you think about it, like people that
yes,
needs to carry an oxygen to breathe, and it's something
hmm
that you cannot live off.
yeah, and kind of growing, sparking out to something I'm not appreciative towards is our country's obsession with like war and I mean, currently the genocide we're perpetuating, and that has made me feel very guilty for all of the good health that I have and stuff like that, because I again have been able to profit off this system that is giving me these things by taking it away from other people, and I don't think I'm ever going to be able to agree with the system because of that. But because of that realization, it has made me appreciate everything that I have just so much more. And nothing is guaranteed, and I'm just so grateful to have like loving, caring people in my life who I sometimes disagree with, but that ultimately like I can share the world with, and I really value that.
Beautiful. Well, now we're going to go to the last part of the podcast, which is the hard questions.
Okay.
So those are those questions that you can answer whatever you feel like, that is no, and if you feel like pass this question, I don't feel like it's totally fine.
Okay.
But if there is a special place you dreamed about it, what you'd be doing to bring gifts to the world, and who would you be there with?
So I've been trying to figure out a way to possibly study abroad for my final quarter. I've been hoping to go to the Netherlands. And on the whole socio-political side of it, I actually really don't know a bunch of what's going on there. But as I mentioned before, like transportation is such a huge value for me. And that's just not something our country cares about. You have to drive everywhere. That increases climate change and then also reduces your ability to fit exercise into your day. And so to see a place like the Netherlands where biking and walking is like actually a way you can get around is something I have to see with my own two eyes.
Yes.
Another thing that I think is really cool there is they have third spaces where you can go and you're allowed to relax there. It's not like you're going to get arrested for loitering or something. And so I would love, love, love to go visit and see that. And I think in a perfect world, I could potentially come back here and use what I learned to upgrade the infrastructure and bring that to the American people. Because, I mean, obviously I have differences with a lot of people here, but we're all people and we all deserve to have that. And I think that the way our transportation is set up currently is really killing us. It's contributing to the obesity problem. It's contributing to the fact that we just don't get exercise and know the people around us. And I would love if the people of our country was able to experience that.
Yeah. Can I tell you something about the Netherlands?
Yeah.
It's my favorite country. And yes, you can bike all over. It's amazing. People there are amazing. And the best produce that I ever had, the best vegetables, the best tomatoes I ever had in my life, it was when I was in the Netherlands. And it's just like amazing. And they are so advanced. They are so like grounded too, And I don't know. I just think it's an amazing country and I love it. I love the Dutch people and I have good friends that are Dutch and I just love being there with them.
Wonderful. On the topic of that produce thing too, it's like, it's very regular for people over there to walk to go get their produce for the day. And it's like, that's just not doable here. And it lets you meet your community around you, the people that are growing this food. it makes you feel like a resident of where you actually live. In America, I feel like I could live in any state and it would just be the same thing. I'm going to drive to work. I'm going to drive to go get fast food or something, which is going to be killing me. So it's just our country does not really value things that are actually going to benefit us in the long run. And I don't want to live in a third world country anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, go after. You got to go after your dreams.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. If you could change anything about yourself, what that would be and why?
I think so far I would not change anything. I think that my experiences and the events that I've gone through that have gotten me to this point, I think are essential to the way that I view the world. I think I would like to know how to better deal with the negative emotions that I feel due to all of the empathy that I have, because there's so much suffering in the world, and at many days I just don't know what to do about that. It's just kind of like, oh, I'm just going to sit in my room and just like wallow about whatever, this or that. And I would love to have a better system for myself to do something actually with those emotions rather than just letting it, tear me down, because it's not doing anything for the people that are suffering.
You gotta chant.
Chant?
Yeah. Na meu horengekyo, na meu horengekyo, na meu horengekyo. And then just let it go. Yeah, ask for a higher power whenever you can control something. And if you're feeling those emotions, you gotta have an outlet, because that's gonna eat you up.
Definitely.
All right, next question and last question. What advice would you give to someone who wants to follow your path?
Well, I think that safety is probably the most important thing that I think anybody questioning their identity can consider. I was very lucky enough to have a family that, while still confusing for them, accepts me. And not everybody has that. It's again, there's a lot of fear mongering towards transgender people, and that can lead to violence even towards family members. And like I said, I live in like the country type area. I luckily have not directly had to run into stuff like this, but try your hardest to find a community that will ultimately uplift you, even if it's just one person that can actually have your back and that you can be honest with. Because humans are social creatures, and if you're just going through your life alone and you can't really invest in the people that you have around you, it's just, you're not going to be able to actually process a lot of your emotions. And I felt like, for me, like I said, in elementary school, I had these feelings and I felt closer to women. But as I grew older, those connections faded, and I did not have people to converse with these emotions on. I would have never been able to get where I am now if it wasn't for the people around me, or the people that I was able to bounce my ideas off of. And so I guess just making sure that you're safe and able to find a loving group of people that will accept you for who you are.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Well, I have something for you. As you know, I'm a designer, and I designed this. Let me get you a little thing here.
Oh.
So I designed this for you. It's a little present from the Life in Design podcast to embrace this persona that you are creating, this beautiful, amazing, pretty woman that you are becoming. And I hope you like it.
So nice. Thank you. Oh, that's so nice. That's so nice. I love it. What did you make this out of?
So it's natural stones and semi-precious. So
it's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, it's.
I love the connecting little jewels you put in between the shells. That's wonderful.
Yeah, I designed for you to embrace, this person that you are becoming, and tell you that you're loved, you are supported, and doesn't matter what politics says, doesn't matter how America goes or any other country around the world, if they love you or not, you are loved. And the most important thing is, like, you got to believe in yourself. You got to go after your dreams, because there is no government, there is no politics that's going to stop you to becoming who you are meant to be.
Well, thank you. I will think about whenever I wear this. Some good advice. Get you a friend like Tam.
Seriously.
Well, thank you. I really, really appreciate this. This is wonderful.
Yeah, I'm glad you like it. So On another note, I just like to finish this episode with you pulling a card from the universe, which is a little message from you. For you, I like to use this deck called "The Universe Has Your Back" by Gabrielle Bernstein, and I don't know if you have ever used a deck before, but basically, like you grab the deck. You knock 3 times to break the energy of whoever touched it before, and then you shuffle and pick a card for you. And then you're gonna have
Any
your
card?
message. Yeah. Just shovel, feel the deck, you know?
I like the backings on these. Okay, I can look?
Yeah.
Okay. You want to read it?
Yeah.
I honor how I want to feel. True. Very true.
See? Beautiful. We can put the card here.
Okay,
Let's just do
okay.
these in here. That's Dan's cards in here. And yeah, well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for this beautiful conversation. I love having you here and I appreciate you and your time. Thank you for being part of the Life in Design podcast and how you design and build your life the way you want to be.
Well, thank you so much. It was wonderful to come and talk to you today. And yeah, great to see you as always.
And thank you for staying with us today. I appreciate you and thank you so much for all the love and support that you guys has been giving to us. If you like this podcast and if you think it's relevant, please share with your family and friends. You also can find us on social media on Instagram and TikTok as Life in Design Podcast. And also you can access all those episodes that we've been doing on our website, which is lifeindesignpodcast.com. I will see you next time. Thank you.